Welcome to Grandpa and the Millennial. My name is Anthony and I'm the grandpa. I'm sitting here with Natasha.
And I'm the millennial.
So how was your week? How have things been going? What have you been up to?
It was fantastic. Good old work week, you know. What else? Long weekend, which was nice. Me personally had a little me time, you know, nails, the spa, all the good stuff, shopping. What else did I do? Went downtown, had dinner at a place that I haven't been to. So it was fun, nothing crazy. What about
Nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy. What about you?
Me time is important. I got to spend some time with my son and his girlfriend who turned 21, Jess. I had a blast over the weekend.
Fun.
I think they made it out to 2:30. We called it, Amy and I called it about 10:30 or 11. So I did not live the party life, but we had a good time. And like you, work is always a grind. And then, you know, we spend an hour or two at the end of each week doing these podcasts, which I really enjoy.
Yeah. I think sometimes you're a little more millennial than me, maybe, at heart or something.
I'm starting to believe that. Sometimes I think you're a little bit more grandpa than I am.
I think so, actually. That's me, my soul.
So there's a lot going on. So we're getting a lot of great feedback. And directionally, we're getting ready to transition into our sales and our leadership topics and really focusing in the sales process, how you engage with the customer, just everything around sales. And then in addition to that, going through our leadership series and really talking about the types of leaders that we want to work with or the type of leadership styles, and then bringing in different leaders, executives from different companies, small business owners, big business owners, come in and really give us a masterclass on what they've done, their journey, and really enlighten us on what leadership is and what we can take away from it. So really excited for the next couple of months as we start to go through this together and then really get into some deep conversations. And we're going to kick it off today and we're going to talk about the why. And the why means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I'd like to focus in on the leadership why, understanding the people that you work with and their why and how to lead in that environment. And we'll probably talk about some of our why as well.
I love that. I'm really excited. As far as sales and leadership, it's something that I'm very passionate about. As you know, we both are. The concept of sales, I can honestly say, I think changed my life. And then being a leader, coming up and, you know, where I'm at in my leadership journey and the leaders that I've worked with have been just instrumental in my life. So I'm so excited to just get different perspectives and get into some of those conversations.
I am too. And I want to do our best to make sure that we're not boring as can be for 30, 35 minutes.
What? Never.
That's what we strive to do is, you know, give good content, have a good conversation and let people listen in. Yeah. So, but most importantly, one of our whys, is taking care of other people and how we inspire people and how they inspire us. So tell me what inspired you or who inspired you this past week.
Oh, love these. So I'm switching it up this week. It's a what inspired me. A lot of people inspire me, but I like taking stock of certain moments. And so this one's real cheesy, but it got me last week. So it's worth a call out. So last week, I'm really close with my niece. She's 5 years old and she had what they call at their school is lunch with a loved one. So you get to invite somebody that's important to you and you know, the whole nine. So I don't have kids, but whenever she, you know, wants something or needs something, I'm there. So I went and I thought it was going to be like, okay, kindergarten class, like lunch, you know, whatever. So I get there and there is like 2 fields full of families that took time out of their day, like, you know, whether they were working or weren't or whatever, but all of these people, like there was this mass amount of people and I was like, oh my gosh. And they were all there to like support their kids, which I thought was really beautiful. And it was just, you know, it was inspiring. And then I got a little sad because I was like, oh, like what if, you know, the kids that don't have somebody there. And so it made me just get down the rabbit hole of like why it's really important and, you know, supporting younger people and all that good stuff. So I had a little moment out on the elementary school, you know, basketball court or wherever we were walking around, but it was just really, really cool. So that kind of, it was just a good day.
That is really cool. And it's very special. And if you haven't recognized yet, so you were the inspiration to your niece. you were there to inspire her. So I love it.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. So my inspiration this past week, I got to spend some time with my son and his girlfriend and my son Donovan, and he's my inspiration this week. I had a really good time with him, and he's going to the University of Nevada, Reno. He's studying communications, so he lives out in Reno, which is a couple hours away from us. He's focused on his work and what he wants to do with his future, and he's an entrepreneur. He has that mindset, and that business mind is what he's focused on. And then in addition to that, he works. He's a cook right now at a place, and then he's going to the gym, between 5 to 7 days a week to keep his mind and his body healthy. And then just overall, he's just a lover. He's just a really good kid with his girlfriend and with his mom and with all of his siblings and everybody. So just a true inspiration to me today. He's very even keeled and grounded, and he always reminds me, hey, just chill, relax. Everything's going to be all right. So big inspiration to me. Love you, boy. I hope you get to listen to this. But that'd be my inspiration for the week.
Oh, that's very sweet. He's your baby, right? He was your made you an empty nester last, right?
He is my baby. Yes, he made me an empty nester. So I get to see him, maybe once a month. But yeah.
Oh, good.
So inspiration for the week.
That's good. That's good.
So let's talk about the why in leadership as we start to get specifically into leadership and sales, which is what our background is and what we lead in the organization that we do today. But not just at work, it's within the family, it's within your community, understanding people's why. And when I say leadership, as I sit across from you, it's understanding your why. Or when I go to dinner with people or whatever you're doing, understanding that person across from you, one makes for a much richer and deeper relationship, but then it also helps avoid conflict and miscommunication as you're starting to go towards a common goal or initiative, or just have a conversation. If you don't understand someone's why, you may be way off.
Yeah.
So let's start with you and when you started learning how to understand other people's whys in your leadership roles through the years. Think back. When did that start, or when did the light bulb go on for you that was important?
Yeah, so I think I said this in the last couple episodes as well. I think I'm in a spot now where I'm realizing, I'm formalizing some of those thoughts or ideas. And so at first you kind of experience it and then you give credit to it. So if I'm looking back, I think before my professional career, right, there's things in your life, like you said, your family. When I was younger, it's school and sports teams. So I always had this natural gravitation towards being a leader, which is interesting because I wouldn't say I'm an extrovert, the first one to jump out and be talkative, but there's something about bringing people together and realizing potential in somebody else. And, like you said, working together to get to a common goal. So I would always see it in sports. Sports played a really big part of my life growing up, through high school and everything. And that was where you get your first taste of, some people want it like you do and some people don't. And then some people can, you just have to figure out what gets them there. So I think that was one of the things, right? You want to win. And if you have people that you might, not vibe with or, you have to work together, you have to figure that out. And then professionally, of course, mine really came, I started out, I would say, as a very young leader. My first real, well, I won't say real. When I worked at the pizza places, I was between 18 and 22, I had 50 people that were reporting to me, all ages, right? Older people, younger people, my same age, and learning oh my gosh, I have to make this restaurant successful, and everyone's just I just all of a sudden found myself in the middle of oh man, I'm responsible for making that happen. And so getting to know the different people, different areas of their lives, the ones that, were just hard workers in general, and those that needed a little bit of a push, it was my job to figure out what that push was. And then in, my first kind of sales leadership role, that was a big one for me because I was in a position where I needed to lead people who had more experience than me, who were a lot older than me, who had been doing the job for a lot longer than I had. And I was like, there's no way I'm going
Yeah,
to
it can be a
connect.
challenge.
Yeah, I'm like, there's no way that we're going to be successful if I can't connect with them. And that was my first priority, is connect, and then we'll talk about the goal, right? And so I think that was my first, where I really had to do some digging and like figure out people's whys, and realizing that they weren't the same as mine. And that was hard. And even when you do figure it out, it's still hard, so.
Yeah. So I'll talk about sports for a moment, because as my kids were growing up, I coached them in basketball and baseball, and I wish I would have had this conversation about 15 years ago, because it would have changed the way that I coached and engaged with not just the individuals or the kids that I was coaching, but the parents. As I reflect and I look back, there's always the parent, and I would assume, if you ask my kids, I might have been this parent from time to time, where the why for what the kid is playing is because mom or dad wants them to be great, or it's their dream. And understanding what's driving those individuals or those kids, it gives a complete different perspective as you get a little bit older, into the grandpa age, and saying, probably would have done things a little bit different. And then playing with somebody or being in sports and understanding their why, just as important. So I love that. I love that insight. Also makes me think of, when I first became a leader, and my leadership started in the Marine Corps, and that's completely different than what we do. I didn't care what the why was. We had a mission to complete. I was given a direct order, and the people below me, I was giving them an order. Now
Did you want that, or did you just find yourself, I don't know how it works, but like, were you going for that to be in a leadership position in the military, or you just...
No, it just happens. You work your way through the ranks, and you become a leader as you go, and you watch people around you, and there's leadership courses and things of that nature. But the real leadership skills happen over time and experience. And, I developed great relationships, and I had rapport and things of that nature. But the way I led when I was 21, 22 in the Marine Corps is not the way I would lead today. And so as I came into, a sales and leadership role, I spent many years selling, and there was a lot of time when I was just focused on being the top on the leaderboard. I was like, I want to make the most money, or I want to sell the most widgets, and then I wanted to go into leadership, and I didn't completely understood why. That was the next step or progression, I thought, and then I started leading people, and I led them all with the same why that I had, and that did not work. That was a disaster, and that's really where I started to learn. I started doing a lot of reading and understanding, one, to find my own why, and why I was in a leadership role, and what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. But then most importantly, for all the leaders that are listening to us out there, understanding that other people's whys are not going to be the same as yours, and how you tap into that, how you have conversations, how you communicate with them. That's really what's going to define and drive the success of you as a leader, for that individual, and then for your overall team. So as we're having this conversations, what are some times that you've seen that not work, where you've seen people come and they've been a leader with the wrong why, or you've been the leader with the wrong why, and how do you break through with people? How do you figure out their whys?
Yeah, so if we go back to, if we go back to the sports a little bit, you start to, as you engage with different coaches or different leaders, or even, your parents or people in your life, you start to see different versions of it, I guess, different styles. And so for me, I realized that there were coaches that engaged with me in a way that motivated me and made me better, and made me feel a way that the work was like nothing, right? Like I could just put it in. And there was others that didn't. And if we were something was off. I'm like, why do you could have two coaches, and one just like makes you completely better and just lights a fire in you. And the other one, you're just like, I'm just not. I don't dig you, whatever, And so then you get into your working career, and I started kind of seeing the same thing. I would realize, and it would make me think, like, why do I have more of a connection? Why do I gravitate towards them, and not this other person? So then when I became the leader, that's what I had to think about too, is like It was actually funny. I got advice once because I always feel like I could help everybody, right? So as a leader, I was like, oh, if I just go in with the best intention and everybody, here's our goal, right? And we're going to get us all there.
Great thought.
So I had this just idea, right? I'm like, I could help anybody. I could bring out anybody's potential. And I said that to a leader that I had one time, and he was like, well, it's like, that's really arrogant of you. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, you think that you're just going to be it for everybody, that you can, you know, figure everybody out and bring out the best and do whatever. And so I started thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, I guess, you know, maybe I can. So it started making me think as I worked one-on-one with each of my team members, you know, was I doing that? Could I figure it out? And sometimes they don't even know their why. So that was hard. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to help you figure out your why. And then I have to connect with your why. And then we have to move together. So working through that taught me a lot. And sometimes I just went in with the wrong idea. I thought that they loved work as much as I did, and that was really wrong. And so I just started asking questions. That's the biggest thing to understand other people and figure them out, is ask questions, whether they know the why or they don't. You know, digging into that and then tying things to their life. And so once you do figure out something and, you know, working with them, whether you're bringing, oh, okay, I know you're, you know, coming to work, you really want to be a good performer because, you know, you are the breadwinner of your household, right? Or you have kids to support, or you want this or that, or the other thing. Always tying things to their why and then having them remember it. And so I think just going through it, trial and error, sometimes, you know, I was oblivious, sometimes I knew and I just didn't connect well. And then I got better at realizing, okay, it's not about whether I understand it or it's mine, but once I know theirs, can I continue to feed into that?
Yeah, we're in complete alignment. So let's walk through some of the steps that new leaders or even existing leaders can walk through, and hopefully we can, you know, inspire and shed some light for some people on how to take this approach to find out the why, and then create a great culture. And let's focus on sales. Let's focus on a sales organization, whether it's inside sales, outside sales. It really doesn't make a difference. So I would say the first step for a leader to gain understanding of other people's whys is to start off. They need to understand their why, and they need to have a vision. Every great leader that I've worked for has had a vision of what we were doing, where we were going, and then we would have conversation about it and how my why would align with that particular vision. So if the vision was just to get as many widgets as possible, that wasn't going to work. Mm-hmm. So I would say, as people think about, or they're creating that vision for their teams, you have to take the result out of it and you have to focus on the purpose. The purpose is the why. So not the result. The result is going to come there, regardless of what it is. We'll call it widgets today, but to get to 100,000 widgets, you have to have a purpose behind that. And understanding that purpose, people will get behind. They'll have a vision. You have a vision, and they will follow your vision there. If you just tell them to go get 100,000 widgets, you're going to get all kinds of responses and ways that's being done, and it's definitely not the way. So vision, from my perspective, when I'm talking to leaders, is the first step in understanding someone's why.
And that's hard. That's hard for some people. I know it was a struggle for me. It was something that I had to learn. And so I think, like you said, the biggest point was, which is also very hard, is forgetting the end result sometimes and just focusing on what you're doing, why, right, and the purpose of it. So I think it's a really good point.
So when we talk about that, and we talk about, you know, vision and the leader's why, what's your why in your day-to-day? So taking family out of it, we know that family is very important, but when you go into your community or you're leading, what is your why? What's driving you in the workplace?
For me, it's my impact on other people. I know that if you interact with somebody, you have the opportunity to impact their lives, and I want it to be positive. For me, I think my why is a little bit of a reflection of what maybe I was missing or wanting as I was either growing up or in a young leader role, is just somebody who is fostering that potential and helping you grow, and, you know, just nurturing that, move or whatever towards greatness. I think that's my big thing. So I want to do that for other people. So my team, no matter what our goal is, I don't care what the number is, I don't care what size the team is, whether it's one person or 100 people, I want them to be their best version, and I want to be a part of that. I want us to be, I'm competitive, so I want us to be the best at whatever we're doing, but what we're doing doesn't matter. For me, that's it, is helping people develop that potential and just be a part of the success.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. People, they're not going to remember what you said for the most part. Say something outrageous, they're going to remember.
Never forget.
Yeah, they'll never forget. But they're going to remember the way you made them feel. And when you're developing somebody and you're working with them the way you're talking about, you're focused on their why and making them the best version of themselves. And that's my why as well. When I look through what I do professionally, I want to help people be the best version of themselves in their career, help them with their skill set or their profession. And whether that be in sales, understanding that process and understanding how you engage with the person on the other side of the table from you, or it's leadership and how you have to develop that muscle and understand that. And that is my why, 100%. This is why we're having these conversations and
Yeah.
we're recording them, is because we want to help other people. Our whys are very much aligned. So let's talk about the next step. So we have a vision. If I was given a young or any leader, if I was giving any leader advice and I said, well, what's your vision? And then the next step is, how do you have a conversation with the person across from you? How are you going to your team and finding out their why? So what's your method to doing that? How do you find out other people's whys?
For me, so I ask a lot of questions, right? The biggest thing is you also can't force people into it, right? They have to be a part of the plan, the process. You have to bring them on the journey, which is something you taught me very early. So I think asking questions to make sure that they're questioning themselves, but also building out, okay, they can have a vision or we can have a vision, but let's ask the right questions. Let's make sure that they're putting their mindset into it and being a part of, okay, I have this vision. Now this is what I need to do. This is why I'm doing it, all of that, so that then the next steps you can take together. So I think asking questions and then starting to make them an active participant in whatever it is that you're doing is crucial.
So let's not leave it a mystery. People are listening. We're having a conversation. So what are some of those questions? What are some of the questions that you would ask? And I'll tell you some of the questions that I would ask.
So I think so purpose, right? You want to feel like you have a purpose. I think that comes back to a lot of people's why. So one, I would just straight up ask them what drives you? You know, what motivates you? Why are you here? Why are you doing this? Why are you wanting to be a part of this?
And do you think you always get the right answer when you ask that question?
Oh, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Very surface level. But I think that when you ask somebody and they don't have an answer, it sparks the thought in them, and then the conversation gets deeper from there.
What other questions?
Okay, so what did I already ask? Why they're doing it? Maybe to dig a little bit to your point is if they don't know, maybe finding out the things that they care about, the things that, work for them, the things that excite them, asking a lot about them, I guess, getting to know them, and sometimes you help them figure out the why together.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of times you do have to help them figure out the why.
Yeah.
So I'll ask the same thing. I'll ask the why right off the bat. And a lot of times you're not going to get the true answer. They may not even know it.
Yeah.
I'll also ask, where do they see themselves in 6 months, 12 months, and 2 years?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Just a simple question. It opens up the door. And then as I get to know them and get to know their story, depending on, who their family is, are they married, are they single, parents, kids, all of that. I try and figure out who plays an important role in their life. And I'll ask them, if I was talking to your spouse or if I was talking to your kid, what would I tell them you do? What would I tell them your passion is? And then that really makes people think. I just watched it in your face. I watch it change the way you think about your answer, about what you do every day.
Yeah, you know what's funny is you actually took me back because, and so I told you, I'm like, still so much like learning and developing myself. But I remember when we first started working together. So I was, really young, really inexperienced. And you've asked me that question, like, where do you see yourself in a year? And I'm like, I don't freaking know where I see myself at the end of this week. I'm like, he was like forcing me. You asked me, like, what's my 5-year plan or something. And I'm like, oh, I have absolutely no idea. And so then I realized, like, oh man, I should have an answer for that when somebody asks me. So it's just interesting. We saw my face. I'm like, oh yeah, that was me. I had no idea. And you were just helping, lead me through that.
Yeah, another way to open up those doors, and it's one of my favorite. And it doesn't matter if it's at work or if you're out and you're looking for an icebreaker. And you've seen me do this probably hundreds of times. Just say, hey, what's your story? Tell me your story.
Oh
I
my
want to know who
gosh.
you are. And
I love this. And yes, I've seen you do it at a bar, at work, and all different types of environments.
yeah, my friends have seen me do it as well, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I've had the best conversations and the most engaging conversations. I've met some of the greatest people in the world just by saying, "Hey, tell me about your story," and watching people light up, tell me about what they're most proud of or what they're passionate about. And you have to dig in. You have to pull back on the layers. And a lot of times you get people look at you kind of weird and say, "Why do you want to know all of this?" And I just like to get to know people. And I encourage young leaders, any leader, but when you're trying to learn how to get the most out of somebody and learn about somebody's personality, just ask them, say, "Tell me your story." And along those lines, as we bring guests on, that's how we're going to lead it. And we're going to say, tell me your story. Tell us your story. We want to know about you because there's greatness in everybody. And if you can get them to open up, you'll get to hear about it.
It's very true. And you get better at it. So you are way better at this than I am. And I've watched you do this and through those conversations, because those conversations aren't always, you could ask somebody that initial question and then they give you a short answer, give you some long answer. And then you're like, okay, where do I go from there? So it's actually to learn how to effectively dig with questions and deepen a conversation to pull it out of people. Whether you're the one asking the questions or you're on the receiving end of the question, I think it makes people pause and like take thought on what their answer is going to be. Or it's not every day somebody asks you what your story is, right? And so I think it's just, for what it's worth, whether you're a leader listening or you're trying to figure out your own why, it takes practice. Like there's no way around it.
Yeah, it definitely takes practice. And I've been practicing it for a long time. But yes, you have to practice the skill of engaging and learning people and you have to be genuine. I genuinely enjoy hearing other people's stories. They're just fascinating to me. And once you tap into that, that's part of my why. It's fun. People will open up. So we've talked about vision, we've talked about conversation, and now as you start to manage and lead within a sales organization, how do you foster? What are your methods for fostering those? Once you have that information and what's your engagement look like? What are you doing? How are you doing it?
So you always have to tie it back, right? If you find out somebody's why or understand them, and that's all, like, okay, for fun, like, okay, I just know this piece of information, you have to use it. So that was the big thing, is if you're going to find out somebody's why, find out about them, connect with them, you're going to have to tie things back to it. So when I'd have a team, say I was working with somebody and I figured out, what their problem was, what they wanted to do, I'd always have to bring it back, and I'd have to remind them sometimes, like, okay, well, this is how it can, and it's not, just come out and say like, oh, this is how it connects. But that would be the conversation, is, hey, here's how we tie it to your why. Whether they were struggling, right, or doing really well, it's like, hey, remember what your why is. You have to always, it's not just a one and done. You have to continue to foster it. And then, like I mentioned, having them put in the work with you. So helping them discover their why and then tie it to what they're doing, and then remember it when things, are going great or not going great. Just making them a part of the process, I think, after you discover it, is really important.
Yeah. So what are what are some examples or some thoughts where you've seen the why not work for leaders, where they've taken missteps? And I have some examples. I can also jump in.
Yeah. Go. I'll think about it.
So I think what's most important when I'm giving advice to leaders is that someone else's why is their why. You don't get to decide, as long as it's ethical and it's moral, you don't get to decide whether it's a worthy why. It may not be your why. It may not be aligned with what your why is, but your job is to support and encourage, foster and develop, not to judge. And where I've seen leaders take a misstep, and I took this misstep when I was younger, so I don't understand this person's why. I can't connect with it.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to try and force my why on them. And every single time that I did that, or I've seen this happen, you lose that person as a leader. So I would encourage anybody. It's not our job to judge. Our job, again, is to encourage and foster. So once you know what their why is, try and understand. And if you can't, encourage. But definitely trying to put your own why into someone else is not going to be successful for you.
That's very true. And I think I've been that leader, not out of any bad intent, right? It's not like I tried to, I told you, I always go into it like, oh, I can help this person, right? I'm going to always make the best of a situation. And I think just from lack of knowledge or understanding, or to your point, the ability to understand, sometimes your people are a lot different than you. And it's not that I don't know if I judged or whatever, but I've found myself like really struggling to connect with that. And I'm like, I don't know how to make them tick because it's just so far off from what I think. So that's something that I'm still learning. And I would definitely agree. I think outside of just knowing it and judging it or, having your own feelings about it is the leaders who don't know it at all. Like there are some that are, and I mean, technically leaders, but, questionable if that's what you can call them, if they just miss it completely. Like you have absolutely no connection. You don't understand what makes your people run. You don't put an effort into finding out. You don't even get the start of like leadership, I think. You just completely miss the boat. So I think that's another one that I've seen is just people who outright don't care or are just oblivious to how important it is. I think that, and then they wonder, they're like, man, why can't I connect with my team? Or how come I can't, I've seen people move teams and then the person thrives, and leaders have been like, well, how come they never worked like that for me? And it's like, oh, well, maybe that's a mirror situation. You need to, take a look at yourself.
Yeah. And I can tell you that those leaders can be saved. I was one of them.
You just need guidance. You don't know.
Guidance. I had to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
So we could spend hours talking about the why. We're just scratching the surface, and I know we'll come back to this topic, but there's one more piece that I wanted to talk to you about before we end, and that's managing up and understanding the leaders above you, their why. So whether you're a sales professional, you're a leader, and it doesn't matter what industry it is, we all have somebody to answer to. Unless you're one of the CEOs and you're running it on your own, you probably still have a board that you have to answer to. So understanding the leader that you report to or in your organization, understanding their why. How do you figure that out? How have you done this in the past? And take me out of it, as we've worked closely for a while. But when you're thinking or you're giving advice to someone, how to figure out the leaders above them, why? What's your advice for them?
This is a loaded question. So a couple things here. So one, I think a lot of people's first thought is that you just manage down or you lead down, right? That was mine. I didn't think that I would, like, leading up was not a concept that I thought about, or I'm like, no, like, I'm not going to manage up or the people above me. And obviously that's changed. So I think for me is it's all the same. It's understanding their why, right? You need to know your leader and understand what drives them, understand, how they like to work and what their purpose is, right? Even if it, like at the most basic level of like at work, right? If they have a job to do or they have something that a goal that they need to get to, understanding that you're a part of that and, they're just trying to get there. I think so. It's the same, whether it's down or up. I think you figure out their why to the extent you can. I think obviously it's easier down than up, on the why situation. But really just getting to know them, understanding as I learned and watched what leaders above me were doing or needing or anything like that. I started to formulate, started to understand what drove them, whether they said it or not, just by, observation. So I think it's very similar. I think figuring out their why and understanding that you're in partnership with them so you can do it together.
Yeah, my advice would be to throw out all titles.
Yeah.
So easier said than done. We're all people, and going and just asking the question, having a conversation, getting to know somebody. It doesn't matter if they're whatever organization you're in, how you see them. They're 3, 4 positions above you, to the side of you, whatever you're aspiring to be. Go sit down and have a conversation or ask for a one-on-one. Say, hey, can I spend some time with you? Sometimes their schedule will be busy and it'll be difficult. If someone is just telling you outright no, it's probably not a leader that you really want to engage with.
Yeah.
I ask all the time, and then I try to get to the why. And you know how I lead it? Tell me your story. And I try to get them to open up and understand. And then I take, the areas that I've learned as a leader, and I'm still developing. I will always be developing, but I try to influence where I can. And, where my influence comes in is through inspiring and making sure that we take care of other people. And I do my best to spread that everywhere. And so as I'm giving advice to anybody, just get in front of somebody, ask them. You want to spend time with Natasha? She'll spend time with you. You want to spend time with me? I'll spend time with you. Absolutely. That would be my advice. So overall, as we're wrapping this up,
real quick, so you do a really good job of that, of positioning people. I think as a leader, you should encourage those situations, get people sit downs with other people and let them know that that's okay. Because you can it's just, this is one of those things from opposite ends of the spectrum here. You're like, oh yeah, titles aside, like just do it, just go for it. And from my side, like it took me a minute to understand that was okay. So I think that it's good advice. Easier said than done.
Easier said than done. And I would say the word that is probably everyone's thinking about, you're talking about networking. And there's probably a component of networking. I'm talking about just genuinely wanting to get to know somebody and understanding how you can be a benefit to them and you can inspire them and get to know them. And there's no title that's involved there. And yes, it takes time. Yeah. It takes time to understand that, be comfortable in your skin. And so from the grandpa perspective, give it 20 years. You just got to keep working at it. So as we're wrapping up this conversation and we talk about why, just overall, what advice do you have for, regardless of position, time, age, in understanding the why or communicating the why? What advice do you have? What's something you want someone to take away with?
2 things, and I think it's been throughout this conversation. One is knowing it, because your why is going to change, right? It's not static. So I think always taking inventory or stock of where you're at right now and challenge yourself. Do you know your own why? If you don't know your why, then how can you expect somebody else to, or how can you help somebody else figure out theirs? So I think it's a really big one. Like always make sure that you know, and then to remember it. So that's also the advice, is when you're going through, you're trying to break through to somebody that's on your team, or maybe it's, something in your home life and you're struggling, you have to remember, am I understanding their why and what's off? What is causing this friction or whatever. And then for you, when times get tough, I think it's easy to forget the why, right? It's all good when things are good. But so yeah, knowing your why and remembering it, I think it's very simple, but that's my advice.
Yeah, it's very simple. Mine as well is focus on the why or the purpose and not the results. So get to know people, have conversations. And what's the word? Introvert. Took me a second there.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I can edit that out. I doubt I will. I'm an introvert by nature. And it might be hard to
Shocking.
believe. Yeah.
Shocking.
So it took some time to engage with people and understand and just have a conversation, but I would encourage everybody to do that. And so as we wrap up, we're having a lot of fun. Inspired Thursday is been incredible, and seeing the post on the Facebook group page and seeing how people are celebrating other people that's part of our big why, and seeing that happen. So I encourage everybody to jump on the Facebook. You can get on Instagram. I'm still figuring out how that works. Twitter, I'm not that great at it yet. And then I know that you're getting ready to do a TikTok. What's it called?
Oh, quit it.
I think it's
TikTok.
TikTok. Yeah.
All the platforms. We're getting them covered. Our bases covered.
Yeah. So the message there is find somebody that inspired you and thank them. Shout them out on the website or on Facebook, and let's just celebrate other people. It's good to see some positivity in the world.
Yeah, celebrate it and spread it. Spread the inspiration.
So, anything that you want to end with?
No, I think that's it.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate the time.
All right, Gramps the Millennial out.